The awakening of humanity's last hope. The CSS Horizon was a titan, a colossal warship that traversed the vast emptiness of space, its sleek, darkened hull cutting through the cosmic void like a blade through silk. Constructed in the depths of Earth's hidden shipyards, it embodied centuries of human ingenuity, secretive advancements, and a fierce determination to never again allow humanity to be vulnerable. The ship's quantum engines hummed in silence, bending space-time itself as it effortlessly glided through the cosmos. It was not just a ship, it was a message. Captain Elizabeth Morgan stood at the command center, her sharp eyes scanning the holographic display that stretched across the bridge. The air was tense, the weight of the mission settling heavily on her shoulders. The CSS Horizon was humanity's first step back into the galaxy after centuries of seclusion. After the devastating First Contact War, Earth had retreated, hiding its newfound strength from the universe, until now. Today, that secrecy was about to be shattered. "Captain, we've picked up a fleet." Lieutenant David Garrett's voice broke through the silence, his hands flying over the control console as he read the data streaming in. "They're approaching from the outer rim. Their quantum signatures are unlike any we've encountered." Elizabeth's pulse quickened as the words settled in her mind. A fleet, not just one ship, but an entire armada. The memory of the first contact, of humanity's destruction at the hands of alien invaders, was too fresh. They had nearly lost everything in that war. Billions had perished, cities were reduced to ash, and humanity had been forced to rebuild from the ground up. It was a painful reminder of their vulnerability. But now, they were not the weak ones anymore. "Bring up the fleet's position," Elizabeth ordered, her voice steady, but filled with an unspoken tension. The hologram shifted as the fleet appeared on the main display. The alien ships were sleek, almost graceful in design, their shapes unlike anything humanity had ever seen. The ships were smaller than the Horizon, but there were at least 20 of them, their energy signatures faint but detectable. They were clearly not as advanced as humanity, but the question remained, what were their intentions? "Looks like a diplomatic delegation," said Commander Raina Sharp, her eyes narrowing as she studied the data. "Their weapons are primitive by our standards. No quantum weaponry, no dimensional phasers, just basic energy-based systems. They're more like a convoy than a battle group." Elizabeth nodded thoughtfully. Their first encounter with aliens had ended in bloodshed, but they had learned valuable lessons from that brutal conflict. The Horizon was a symbol of those lessons, humanity's answer to the galaxy's threats, built for survival and diplomacy alike. They had advanced far beyond their ancestors, and with the Horizon, they would show the universe that Earth would never again be caught off guard. "Prepare to engage," Elizabeth commanded, her voice filled with authority. "But keep weapons at standby. Let's see how they respond." As the Horizon silently moved closer to the approaching fleet, Elizabeth's mind raced. Was this the moment humanity had been waiting for? A chance to restore their place in the galaxy? Or would this encounter trigger another war? The scars of the First Contact War still ran deep, and the pain of loss was something no one had forgotten. But now, they had the power. They had the knowledge. They had the Horizon. The alien ships were drawing nearer, and with them, the looming possibility of what lay ahead. Elizabeth knew the first contact was never simple, and this would be no exception. But whatever happened, she was ready. Humanity was ready. The world's last hope rested on their shoulders, and they would not fail. "Captain, they're hailing us." Communications Officer James Lee's voice rang through the bridge. Elizabeth turned to face him, her expression a calm mask despite the storm of thoughts swirling inside. "Open the channel," she ordered, her mind racing through the possibilities. The view screen flickered to life, revealing an alien bridge. The commander of the fleet was unlike any species humanity had encountered before. Its form was translucent, its body seemingly made of flowing crystal that pulsed with an inner light. Its voice, when it came, was soft, but filled with an unmistakable power. "This is High Commander Zodar of the Tariq Collective," the alien said, its voice an odd melody of tones that sent a chill down Elizabeth's spine. "We come in peace. What is your purpose in our sector?" Elizabeth's heart raced, but she kept her voice steady. "I am Captain Elizabeth Morgan of the CSS Horizon, the flagship of the United Earth Federation. We come seeking peaceful contact with your people. We are not your enemies." The alien seemed to hesitate, its crystalline form flickering in what Elizabeth assumed was surprise. "We did not expect such a ship from a species we thought to be long lost," Zidar replied. "Your presence here is unsettling, but your intentions, you say, are peaceful." Elizabeth met the alien's gaze with a steady eye. "Yes, we seek cooperation and understanding. We wish to join the galactic community once again." There was a long pause before Zadar spoke again. "Then you must understand, Captain Morgan, that our people do not take the sudden appearance of such a ship lightly. We will need to assess your claims further. Until then, we request you remain in orbit while we prepare our council." Elizabeth held her breath, unsure of what would happen next. This was only the beginning, but it was already clear. The galaxy would not accept humanity's return without question. Yet humanity had learned much during its long exile. The Horizon was more than just a ship. It was a statement, and one that could not be ignored. As the alien fleet shifted into formation around the horizon, Elizabeth steeled herself for the next chapter of humanity's story in the stars. The future was uncertain, but humanity was ready to face whatever came next. The Horizon would lead them, not just into space, but into a new era. The Tarek's proposal. The Horizon hung in orbit like a sentinel, a stark contrast to the scattered fleet of alien ships surrounding it. The Tarek Collective had surrounded the human vessel, a subtle display of caution, or perhaps power, only visible in the slight shift of their formations. The stars outside the viewports twinkled coldly, unaware of the tense standoff unfolding within this distant corner of the galaxy. Captain Elizabeth Morgan stood before the main holographic table, watching the alien ships on the display, her fingers lightly grazing the edges of the transparent interface. Her thoughts were a tangled web of strategy and uncertainty. The Tarek were an enigma, unlike anything humanity had encountered in their previous, disastrous first contact. The war with the Krakians had burned too deep, leaving scars that humanity could never forget. But the Tarek, with their translucent, crystalline forms and measured tones, seemed different. For now, at least. "Captain," Lieutenant David Garrett spoke up, breaking the heavy silence. "The Tarek fleet is holding position. No signs of aggression. But their response time to our messages, concerning. They're cautious, very cautious." Elizabeth nodded grimly. "I expected as much. They're not just assessing our ship. They're assessing us. Humanity's re-emergence won't be met with open arms. We have to prove ourselves." "We're ready, Captain," Commander Raina Sharp added, her voice firm as ever. "Our systems are all green. We can defend ourselves if it comes to that. But I agree with your assessment. We have to show them we're here for more than just power plays." As the crew continued their silent vigil, waiting for a response from the Tarek, Elizabeth found her thoughts drifting back to the vision that had driven her and the rest of Earth's leaders to launch the Horizon. A galaxy full of potential allies, opportunities, and untapped resources. But it was also a galaxy full of dangers, and she could not afford to forget that. The Horizon was not just the future of humanity. It was humanity's last chance. Suddenly, the bridge's lights dimmed, and the view on the screen flickered. A new communication signal came through, a formal transmission from High Commander Zadar. "Captain Morgan." The crystalline voice echoed through the bridge, its tone still calm but carrying an undercurrent of something more, something unspoken. "The Tarek Collective has considered your request for peaceful contact. We would propose a meeting of representatives. However, there are conditions you must agree to." Elizabeth's pulse quickened, but she kept her composure. "What conditions, Commander Zadar?" she asked, her voice even and deliberate. The High Commander's form shimmered as he responded, his crystalline body shifting colors in what appeared to be an attempt to convey emotion, something the humans had no point of reference for. First, we require you to demonstrate your technological prowess. The Tariq do not accept unproven claims, especially from a species we thought extinct. Your ship's capabilities must be tested. If you truly are who you claim to be, your actions will speak louder than your words. Elizabeth felt a knot tighten in her stomach. A test. Of course. Humanity's absence had left the galaxy uncertain of their place, and now, the Tariq wanted proof. To them, humanity was still an unknown quantity, no different from the countless other species they had encountered and dealt with in one way or another. If they hoped to earn the Tariq's trust, and potentially their cooperation, they would have to show their power, not just talk about it. "We're prepared to demonstrate our capabilities, Commander," Elizabeth replied, carefully keeping her voice steady. "What do you have in mind?" Zadar's form pulsed, the inner light dimming slightly as he explained. "We will engage in a non-lethal demonstration of your weapon systems. You will prove your strength, but you must also show restraint. If you fail to meet our expectations, we will reconsider your request for contact. Should you succeed, we will meet with your representatives and begin discussions of potential alliances." The words were as cold as the void outside the ship, but Elizabeth could feel the weight of them. A test of humanity's strength, both in firepower and diplomacy. If they passed, it could open the door to alliances, to trade, to knowledge. If they failed, the Tariq might turn away and leave Earth once again in isolation, perhaps even forcing them to reconsider their place in the galaxy altogether. "Understood," Elizabeth said after a long pause. "We will comply with your conditions. Prepare for the demonstration, Lieutenant Garrett. I want everything to be ready for launch." The bridge crew immediately went into motion, each member understanding the gravity of the moment. There would be no second chances. Elizabeth turned to her tactical officer, Commander Sharp, and gave a subtle nod. "I've already prepared the display for the Tariq," Sharp said, her voice betraying a hint of nervous energy. "We'll show them the power of our particle accelerators, our pulse weapons. It's time they understand what humanity is capable of." The ship's systems hummed to life as Garrett began the process of powering up the Horizon's weapons. On the view screen, the Tariq fleet waited, its ships silent and unmoving, an unblinking watchful presence. Elizabeth's mind raced. This was it. This was humanity's chance to prove that the galaxy could trust them, that they were not just a remnant of a lost civilization, but a force to be reckoned with. The stakes were impossibly high, but she knew the Horizon's firepower would be more than enough to win this test, assuming they kept it within the parameters the Tariq had set. "We're ready, Captain," Garrett said, his voice cutting through her thoughts. "Initiate the demonstration," Elizabeth ordered, her voice a command born from years of training, experience, and the weight of leadership. The Horizon's engines roared to life as the ship shifted position, its weapons coming online with terrifying precision. From the Tariq fleet, there was no sign of movement, but Elizabeth knew this was their moment to show restraint. As the Horizon powered up its particle cannons and pulse lasers, Elizabeth held her breath. Would the Tariq be satisfied with the show of strength, or would this only push them further into suspicion? She could feel the tension building, the collective uncertainty of her crew like a low hum in the background. This was more than just a demonstration of firepower. This was humanity's declaration that they were back. They were ready to be part of something bigger. But as the energy surged through the ship, Elizabeth knew one thing for certain. This was only the beginning. The future of humanity's place in the stars would be shaped here, in this moment, in the delicate balance between strength and diplomacy. The outcome of this test would determine everything. The price of trust. The moment the Horizon's particle cannons fired, the immense power radiating from the ship was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. The energy beams shot out with pinpoint accuracy, striking a series of unmanned targets positioned by the Tariq fleet. The blasts were controlled, precise, designed to showcase humanity's technological might without causing irreversible damage. The demonstration was not to provoke. It was to prove that humanity could wield its power with restraint. Captain Elizabeth Morgan stood with her arms crossed, her gaze fixed on the view screen, watching as the energy rippled through the targets. The alien fleet remained perfectly still, the eerie silence of space amplifying the tension that hung thick in the air. There was no applause, no reaction from the Tariq ships, just the cold, calculating stillness of their fleet. It was as if they were waiting for something more, something that would indicate whether humanity was truly a force to be reckoned with, or merely another fleeting species with delusions of grandeur. Test successful, Lieutenant Garrett reported, his voice steady, though Elizabeth could hear the edge of uncertainty beneath it. Energy readings are within expected parameters. No overcharge. We've done as they requested. Then we wait, Elizabeth replied, her voice firm but calm. The power display was only part of the equation. The real test, she knew, lay in how the Tariq would react to humanity's display of force. Would they accept humanity as a legitimate power in the galaxy, or would they see it as a threat to be neutralized? Minutes passed in silence, the vast emptiness of space pressing in on the crew, making each moment feel like an eternity. Then, without warning, a signal crackled through the bridge, breaking the tension. "Captain," Communications Officer James Lee said, his fingers dancing across his console. "The Tariq have sent a transmission. It's different this time. It's a direct line to you." Elizabeth turned to face the screen, her expression neutral, though a knot tightened in her stomach. This was it, the moment of truth. With a final, deep breath, she signaled for the transmission to be opened. The screen flickered to life, and High Commander Zadar's crystalline form appeared once more. This time, there was a noticeable shift in the alien's demeanor. Gone was the cold formality. In its place was something more elusive, an unreadable expression, a mix of caution and something else, perhaps curiosity. "Captain Morgan," Zadar began, his voice smooth, but carrying an undercurrent of something unspoken. "Your demonstration was impressive. You have proven that your species is capable of great power and restraint. However, we must now assess your motives. The Tariq are not a people who take such displays lightly. There is always a price for trust, and we must determine whether the price is one we are willing to pay." Elizabeth felt her pulse quicken, but she did not let her nerves show. "What is the price, Commander?" she asked, her tone even, though the weight of the question hung heavily between them. Zadar's form shifted again, the lights within his body flashing with a rhythm that suggested thought, even if his true emotions remained hidden. "Your display of power was a necessary step, but it does not guarantee cooperation. It does not prove your worthiness as an ally. The galaxy is a vast and dangerous place, Captain. You have shown us that humanity can be a threat. But are you a good threat, or one that will one day turn against us? That is what we must determine." Elizabeth felt the heat of the moment intensify. "And how do you propose we prove that to you?" she asked, keeping her voice steady. "The Tariq do not believe in trust without evidence. We must test not only your strength, but your ability to work with others. There is a conflict brewing in the far Koran system, a skirmish between several species vying for control of a resource-rich planet. We have been unable to broker peace, but we have the influence to stop the bloodshed. We offer you a choice, Captain. You will take the Horizon to the far Koran system and mediate this conflict. If you succeed, the Tariq will open the door to diplomatic relations with humanity. If you fail, humanity will remain in isolation, and your return to the galaxy will be no more than a brief footnote in history." Elizabeth's mind raced. The task was monumental, an interspecies conflict that had eluded even the Tariq's skilled diplomats. But this was the test. If humanity could mediate peace in such a volatile situation, they would prove not only their strength, but their wisdom and capacity for diplomacy. It was a risk, one that could either pave the way for alliances or cement humanity's place as a potential enemy. "I accept," Elizabeth said, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. "We'll go to the far Corin system and resolve this conflict. If humanity is to have a place in this galaxy, we will prove it on our terms, through diplomacy, not war." Zedar's body flickered with a pulse of light that Elizabeth had come to interpret as something akin to approval, though the alien's features remained unreadable. "Very well, Captain. We will monitor your progress. The Tariq will provide you with support if needed, but ultimately, the success of this mission will depend on you." The screen flickered again as the transmission ended, and Elizabeth let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. The crew was silent, all eyes on her. This was more than a diplomatic mission. It was humanity's defining moment. "Prepare the Horizon for immediate departure," Elizabeth ordered, her voice now steady and resolute. "We've been given an opportunity. We won't waste it." As the ship's engines roared to life, Elizabeth turned to face the vast expanse of space before her. The far Corin system lay ahead, a chaotic web of conflicting interests and hostile species, but it was also the key to humanity's future in the stars. This would be their trial by fire. There could be no retreat, and Elizabeth Morgan would make sure humanity rose to the challenge. The brink of diplomacy. The journey to the far Corin system was swift, though every second aboard the Horizon felt like an eternity. As the sleek warship cut through the void, its engines humming with quiet power, Captain Elizabeth Morgan sat in the command center, staring out at the endless stretch of stars. Despite the confidence she had shown to the Tariq, a deep sense of unease gripped her. This mission was more than a diplomatic assignment. It was humanity's future in the galaxy. The weight of that responsibility rested squarely on her shoulders. "Captain, we're approaching the far Corin system," Lieutenant David Garrett reported, his voice cutting through the tension. "I've plotted a course for the primary conflict zone. We'll be within range of the disputed planet in a few hours." Elizabeth nodded. "Good. Prepare for potential negotiations with all parties involved. I want a full analysis of the factions we'll be encountering." "Commander Sharp, status on our defenses." "We're ready," Commander Raina Sharp replied, her voice filled with quiet determination. "All systems are functioning at full capacity. However, as per Tariq's request, I've also run simulations for non-lethal methods of engagement. We're prepared to de-escalate if things turn hostile." "Let's hope we don't have to use them," Elizabeth said, a hint of tension in her voice. She had always believed in diplomacy, but the galaxy had proven itself to be a hostile place. Even now, as the Horizon neared the conflict zone, she knew that peace was a fragile thing, easily shattered. The far Corin system was a strategic hotspot, a crossroads for several species, each with their own ambitions and histories. The contested planet, Zunur, was rich in resources, rare minerals and energy sources that could fuel entire civilizations. Naturally, this had drawn the attention of multiple factions, each believing their claim to the planet was the most valid. The fighting had been fierce, and the situation had escalated to the point where a full-scale war seemed imminent. That was where humanity came in. "Captain," Communications Officer James Lee called out from his station, "we've received a transmission from the leading faction in the conflict. They're requesting immediate contact. They've identified themselves as the All-3 Dominion." Elizabeth's stomach tightened. The All-3 Dominion were known for their militaristic tendencies and their rigid caste system. They weren't the type to easily accept outsiders, let alone accept the idea of diplomacy. If the All-3 were the first to make contact, it could be a sign of desperation, or perhaps an opportunity to end the fighting. "Put them through," Elizabeth said, her voice composed despite the inner storm of uncertainty. The view screen flickered, and an imposing figure appeared. The All-3 representative was a tall, armored figure, their features concealed behind a helmet that seemed to be a permanent fixture of their species' identity. The figure's voice was deep, echoing with the authority of a commander who had seen countless battles. This is Warlord Carrick of the All-Three Dominion. You are the humans, correct? The species who claims to have the power to end this conflict. Elizabeth met the Warlord's gaze, her expression unyielding. I am Captain Elizabeth Morgan of the CSS Horizon. We have come to mediate the conflict and broker a peace agreement between all factions involved. Humanity's goal is to bring an end to this war, not to fight. Warlord Carrick's armored form seemed to pulse with restrained energy. Your species has no place in this war, human. This is a conflict for resources, not for ideals. We will not negotiate unless you prove your value to us. Show us your strength, or leave. Elizabeth's jaw tightened. The All-Three were making it clear that they wouldn't settle for idle talks. They would need to see the power behind humanity's words. It was a challenge, but Elizabeth had anticipated something like this. The Tariq had given them no choice but to prove their capabilities, and now the All-Three were demanding the same. We have no intention of leaving, Warlord Carrick, Elizabeth replied, her voice firm. You may not be familiar with humanity's history, but we fought for survival on a broken world for centuries. We are not afraid to stand our ground. But we are here for peace, not war. If you truly want peace, we will negotiate terms. If not, we will have no choice but to take actions to protect our interests and ensure the safety of the innocent. The silence that followed was thick with tension, the weight of their words hanging in the air. Carrick's figure stood still, the dark energy of his presence filling the space between them. For a moment, it seemed like he might simply end the communication and escalate the conflict. But then, after what felt like an eternity, he spoke again. We will give you one chance, human, Carrick said, his tone colder than before. Meet with our council. If you can convince us of your worth, perhaps we will listen. But know this, if you fail, there will be no second chances. The transmission ended abruptly, and the view screen returned to its usual display. Elizabeth exhaled, a slow breath of relief mixed with uncertainty. The All-Three were formidable, but this was their chance to prove that humanity could be more than just a powerful species. They could be a unifying force, a beacon of hope in a galaxy torn by conflict. But it wouldn't be easy. Prepare for a council meeting with the All-Three, Elizabeth ordered, her voice sharp with resolve. We'll give them the best we have. I won't let humanity's future be decided by war. The crew immediately got to work, coordinating their next move. Elizabeth turned to her crew, her mind focused on what was to come. The next few hours would determine everything. They had to make the All-Three see that humanity could be more than just another militaristic species. They had to show them that diplomacy could work, that peace was not only possible, but preferable. As the horizon drifted closer to the All-Three's stronghold in the heart of the far Coran system, Elizabeth felt the weight of the galaxy pressing down on her. The fate of Zunur, and the future of humanity's place in the stars, rested on their ability to navigate this delicate dance of diplomacy and power. She only hoped they were ready for what lay ahead. The crucible of negotiation. The council chamber of the All-Three Dominion was a grand, imposing structure, a fortress of black stone and gleaming metallic surfaces, lit by a cold, flickering glow. The room felt more like a battlefield than a space for diplomacy, as if every inch of it was designed to intimidate and test the resolve of anyone who dared enter. Elizabeth stood at the entrance, the heavy door sliding open with a hiss, revealing the council table at the center of the room. The air was thick with a palpable tension of the All-Three representatives, their stern faces hidden behind helmets and battle armor. As she stepped forward, her boots echoed against the hard, polished floor. Her crew, though a bit uneasy, followed her in silence, standing behind her with their hands clasped at their sides. The silence was oppressive, each All-Three figure watching her every move, their eyes hidden but their presence felt in every corner of the chamber. Warlord Carrick was already seated at the head of the table. His imposing figure towered above the others, his deep voice the only sound that had filled the room since they arrived. He watched Elizabeth with the same cold calculation that had marked their first encounter. You stand before the All Three Dominions High Council. Human. Carrick's voice rumbled, his tone betraying no emotion. You say you come for peace, but peace is a fragile thing. We've seen it broken too many times. What makes you think your species has what it takes to broker an end to this conflict? Elizabeth squared her shoulders, standing tall. The weight of her words carried the responsibility of her entire species. She knew she had to tread carefully. Too much force, and they would lose the delicate balance they were walking. Too little, and the All Three would dismiss them outright. Peace is never easy, Warlord Carrick, she began, her voice steady, but the words laced with determination. But humanity has been forged in the fires of conflict. We understand the value of cooperation, because we've learned the hard way that war only brings destruction. We're here to stop the bloodshed, not to add fuel to the flames. If we are to have a place in this galaxy, we must first show that we're willing to help others, to build a future where everyone can survive. Together. The council room seemed to pulse with a mixture of skepticism and curiosity. The All Three had heard similar promises from others in the past, only to see them crumble under the weight of ambition and pride. They were no strangers to power struggles, but Elizabeth's words felt different, sincere, even if the All Three were reluctant to admit it. Warlord Carrick leaned forward slightly, his helmet reflecting the dim light as he regarded her carefully. You say you've learned the hard way, human. Show us then. The Far-Coran system is a powder keg. 3 factions are vying for control of Zinner. We've tried diplomacy, but they won't listen. How will you convince them to lay down their weapons? Elizabeth's eyes narrowed. This was it, the moment that would either make or break the mission. She had anticipated this challenge. Negotiating peace was never as simple as speaking words. It required understanding, compromise, and most importantly, the willingness to risk everything for the greater good. We'll start by listening, Elizabeth said, her voice unwavering. Each faction has its own interests and fears. We will meet with their leaders, understand their grievances, and find common ground. Only through mutual understanding can we even begin to address the underlying causes of the conflict. But we can't do this alone. If you want this peace to work, the All Three must also play a role. You've been a force in this system for centuries. Your influence is undeniable, but you must show the factions that you don't seek domination, but cooperation. The room seemed to hold its breath, the All Three leaders exchanging subtle glances. Carrick, however, did not shift his gaze from Elizabeth. He was measuring her every word, every breath. The weight of his scrutiny made Elizabeth feel as though the air had thickened around her. Do you truly believe that peace can be brokered so easily? Carrick asked, his voice softer now, though still carrying the authority of someone who had fought countless battles. You say you will listen. And then what? You want us to simply put down our weapons and trust you. The All Three do not trust easily. Elizabeth knew that the next words she spoke would either convince the All Three to lend their support or turn them away entirely. We won't ask you to trust us, Elizabeth replied, her eyes never leaving Carrick's. What we're asking for is a chance to prove ourselves, not just through words, but through action. If you help us, if you show the factions that you are willing to back this peace process, then we will show the galaxy what humanity can do. Not just through our weapons, but through our hearts and minds. We've faced extinction before, and yet here we are. We know the cost of war. We won't let it happen again. A tense silence fell over the council chamber. The All Three exchanged unreadable glances, their expressions hidden behind their imposing armor. Elizabeth could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on her, but she stood firm, her resolve like steel. After what felt like an eternity, Carrick finally spoke again. Very well, Captain Morgan. We will give you your chance. But understand this, if you fail, we will not hesitate to destroy the factions that continue to fight. And we will hold humanity responsible for any bloodshed that follows. Elizabeth's heart pounded in her chest, but she did not falter. I understand, Warlord Carrick. We will succeed. The tension in the room seemed to ease, just slightly. The all-three High Council had agreed to support the mission. For now. But the true challenge still lay ahead. Elizabeth had no illusions about the task before them. The factions on Zinner were entrenched in their ideologies, and convincing them to lay down their weapons would require more than just diplomacy. It would require humanity to prove that they were more than just conquerors. They were allies, capable of building something greater than war. As the meeting drew to a close and the all three council members left the chamber, Elizabeth turned to her crew, her expression resolute. "We've got a long road ahead of us," she said, her voice steady. "But humanity is ready. We'll show the galaxy that peace is worth fighting for." The Horizon's engines hummed in the distance, ready to carry them to the far Koran system, where the fate of Zinner and the future of humanity's place in the stars awaited. The negotiations begin. The far Koran system loomed before the CSS Horizon, its vast expanse bathed in the golden light of a distant star. At the center of it all was Zinner, a planet that had become a battleground for control of its rich resources. From space, it appeared peaceful, a green and blue orb with swirling clouds and sprawling continents. But below the surface, chaos reigned. The planet had become a microcosm of everything wrong with the galaxy: greed, distrust, and a refusal to yield to compromise. Humanity's mission was simple, yet impossibly complex. End the fighting, forge a path to peace, and secure a future for all who lived on Zinner. Captain Elizabeth Morgan stood in the command center of the Horizon, staring out at the planet that awaited them. The time for preparation had ended. Now was the time for action. "Captain, we've received a transmission from the first faction, the Zoreth Coalition," Lieutenant David Garrett reported, breaking the silence. His voice was tinged with both anticipation and the underlying nervousness that everyone on the bridge could feel. "Put it through," Elizabeth replied, her voice calm, but her heart pounding in her chest. She had expected the Zoreth to be the first to make contact. Of all the factions involved, they were the most open to negotiation, though still fiercely protective of their claims to Zinner's resources. The view screen flickered to life, revealing a figure clad in intricate armor, its sleek design a testament to the Zoreth's technological prowess. The individual's face was obscured, but the tone of their voice was sharp and calculated. "This is Commander Varys of the Zoreth Coalition," the figure announced. "We've been expecting you, Captain Morgan. If you are here to negotiate, be aware. We will not tolerate weak terms or compromise on our interests. Zinner is ours, and no one will take it from us." Elizabeth's eyes narrowed slightly. She had prepared for this. The Zoreth were known for their militaristic approach, but they were also pragmatic. They could be reasoned with, even if it would take time. "We're not here to take anything from you, Commander Varys," Elizabeth said, her voice steady. "We're here to find a way to share the resources of Zinner, so that no one faction controls it all. Peace is the goal, not conquest." The transmission crackled, and Varys's form shifted slightly, as if considering her words. "Peace." The word was almost a sneer. "You speak of peace, but you are human. Your kind has a history of waging war and taking what isn't yours. How can you claim to want peace when your very presence here is an imposition?" Elizabeth's mind raced. It was true that humanity's history was filled with conflict, but they had learned from it, suffered because of it. She knew this wasn't the time to let emotions or history cloud the conversation. She needed to win the Zoreth's trust, to show them that humanity's motives were genuine. "You're right about one thing, Commander. We've waged wars, and we've paid the price for that," Elizabeth said, her voice unyielding. "But we've learned. Our species nearly destroyed itself in the past, and we've been working in isolation, rebuilding. We've come back stronger, but not to conquer. We've come to prove that we can create a future without war." For a long moment, there was silence. The Zoreth were calculating, always weighing their options. Finally, Varys spoke again, his tone softer, though still full of suspicion. "If you are truly seeking peace, then we will meet with you, he said. "But understand this. There will be no compromise on our claim to Zinner. We control the planet's most vital resources, and we will not relinquish them." Elizabeth nodded slowly. "I understand, Commander. We'll meet with you, and we'll discuss how we can share the planet's resources in a way that benefits everyone. But we won't make any promises unless we're sure all factions are on board." The screen flickered once more as the transmission ended. Elizabeth turned to her crew, her eyes steady despite the weight of the upcoming negotiations. The Zoreth were just the first faction to engage, but they were also the most challenging. They had the most to lose, and in many ways, they were the most entrenched in their views, but they were not an impenetrable wall. Elizabeth could feel it. They had shown a crack, a willingness to listen. "Prepare for the meeting with the Zoreth leaders," Elizabeth said, her voice firm with resolve. "But remember, we're not here to win their favor through force. We're here to earn their trust through dialogue. Our presence here must show them that humanity is not a threat, but an opportunity." Commander Sharp approached from behind, her voice a low murmur as she joined Elizabeth at the command table. "We've reviewed all available data on the Zoreth Coalition. Their position is clear. They want control. But there's a significant faction within their ranks that believes in peaceful coexistence. If we can reach them, we might sway their leadership." Elizabeth nodded. "We'll need to meet with them all, not just the military leaders. We need to find common ground with everyone, the industrialists, the diplomats, and even the neutral factions. Zinner's future isn't just in the hands of one group. It belongs to all of them." The Horizon began its approach to the Zoreth stronghold, a massive space station orbiting Zinner. As they drew closer, the reality of the situation settled in. This wasn't just a negotiation for resources. It was a test of humanity's place in the galaxy. The outcome would determine not only the future of Zinner, but humanity's role in the greater galactic community. Elizabeth glanced at her crew, each of them steadfast, ready for the task ahead. The negotiations were about to begin, and the weight of those first words would set the tone for everything that followed. "Let's show them what humanity can do," Elizabeth said, her voice resolute. "Let's prove that peace is worth the fight." With that, the Horizon docked with the Zoreth stronghold, and the final phase of humanity's first galactic diplomatic mission began. The outcome of this meeting would set the stage for a new chapter in the history of humanity and the galaxy.